these pieces are, you know, the sort of fallen cultural icons, or the beginning set of fallen cultural icons that no longer have, you know, meaning to Americans, or maybe they've been discarded by the corporations that once touted them, you know, and built them up and made them a very significant piece of their corporate identities, and now they've been retired, you know, or they've been cast aside, or people just don't want to identify with them anymore. And so the fact that they're these enormous empty bags of air just, I think, richly informs that concept. Around 2 years ago, I was on a hike. I do a lot of hiking in New Mexico, and there's just amazing. It's like an ocean of land, and there's so much space out there. You know, it's incredible. And the things that you see in the stillness, you know, is sort of deeply comforting. But one of the more unfortunate things that I came across a few years ago was a horse dying in the desert, and it was one of the most desperate and pathetic things I've ever seen. I mean, he was completely emaciated, his stomach was sort of bloated, and it was, I assume it was dying of thirst. And it inspired this notion in my mind to revisit the former corporate logo for the Mobil Oil Corporation. And when Exxon and Mobil merged together, they apparently decided to drop the Mobil horse. And so this concept that Exxon had recently become the largest corporation in the world, where yet we're sort of nearing peak oil and the end of oil, and then they decided to sort of abandon the Pegasus as their icon, and then you've seen this horse kind of die in the desert. I'm all the way in this notion of like seeing the Mobil icon bleeding out, you know, it's life blood, it's a central essence, you know, as it sort of fades into obscurity with the use of fossil fuels as we know them. This piece actually came about around about the time of the end of the last political election. And, you know, I mean, it's got a few different meanings, but I found out that Mayor McCheese had been recently retired by McDonald's Corporation. Now he, like Ozymandias and like the Mobil Pegasus, is going to fade into obscurity and kind of cease to exist in sort of the cultural consciousness. It becomes something novel, something nostalgic. So I decided that, you know, his campaign run was over, and it was time for him to just sit down and cast off his spectacles and relax, and maybe feel a little dejected, you know, about the end of the run. You know, maybe he's okay with it, or maybe he's a little sad. But you know, whatever it is, it's his time to rest. Tax Cut is my most meditative body of work, and that's because I spend quite a few hours in the studio carefully deconstructing and reconstructing US currency into collage, primarily images of weapons. And I had resolved that subject matter a few years ago through a number of factors. Primarily that I realized as an artist I had a unique advantage in that I could write off anything that I deemed an art material. And so I started going to the bank and withdrawing $50 or $100 or $200 at a time, and then I would bring that money home, take it in the studio and cut it up, and image the weapons that I wasn't buying with that money. I actually really enjoy the work for, you know, more reasons other than just the conceptual premise, but I definitely enjoy the fact that on some level I'm using a creative act to take money out of the IRS coffers and decide how and where my tax dollars are being spent. Recess is kind of, I mean, this work is much more personal because more than anything, it kind of stems from my own fears and my own position in life as I now live it. I've like reached this different sort of tier of the American dream, I guess you want to call it, and it's terrifying. I mean, in Recess, living in a desert and buying a house with a swimming pool, it just seemed like a tremendous waste of space, waste of resources, waste of time and energy and money. And so I thought long and hard about what I would like to have instead of a swimming pool. And the fact that I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you know, the fact that in 5 years I've had my various cars broken into 7 times, you know, that I've had to like kick people in the street to be sure they were still breathing, you know, that, I mean, I've actually been held up at gunpoint, and it makes me fear again for like my family, the sanctity of my home, you know, the security of my wife and now my baby. And so putting a fortified bunker, you know, in the deep end of the pool, or where the pool used to be, just seemed like a perfectly logical conclusion, you know. And now if I want to, I can wall myself in there, you know, with my family, and you know, you're not going to shoot your way in, you know, and we will be fine. We will be secure in the worst of times. I feel prepared. I'll take you on a walking tour of the bunker. I'm going to be locking myself in the bunker, with the exception of leaving on occasional night raids if I don't have the resources I require. It's just going to be a short-term simulation of a resource scarcity crisis. Turn off the power, turn off the water, and rely on only what I've stored at that point. Now, I'm outfitting this space to accommodate myself and my family for an extended stay, 6 months or longer. So I should have a relatively high number of resources for a short-term performance. What it's mostly going to serve the purpose of is teaching you how to survive a significant resource scarcity crisis.